All right. So I want to read you guys a piece here from Real Progressives. This is about how states are kind of running out of budget space, running out of money. And again, I'll make the distinction. The federal government is the currency issuer. They are not financially constrained. States are financially constrained because states are currency users, not currency issuers. This is from back in January, but it is still very pertinent, and I wanted to make sure to bring it to you guys. Failure to shore up. Oh, and by the way, realprogressives.org if you want more fantastic articles and podcasts as well. Failure to shore up state budgets may hit women's wallets especially hard. This is by June Carbone from the University of Minnesota, Nancy Levitt from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and Naomi Kahn from the University of Virginia, who co-wrote this piece. States are seeing enormous budget shortfalls because of the coronavirus pandemic, and the consequences for teachers and other public school employees could be dire. At least 640,000 education jobs in state and local government vanished between February and August of 2020. The states, which provide an average of about 47% of U.S. public school funding, are cutting school spending because their tax revenue is declining and they have no easy recourse to balance their budgets. Unlike the federal government, states can't just print money. Negotiations continue around another pandemic relief bill, which would include money for states to spend on public education. But lawmakers have passed no measures since May, when the House of Representatives passed a $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill that stalled in the Senate. Obviously, there was further stimulus packages that were grossly inadequate that followed this article, but I think that point still stands. We study families, employment, corporations, and gender. We are tracking how the coronavirus pandemic is underscoring the disproportionate financial burden women bear when states slash their budgets in times of recession. Without sufficient federal aid, recessions have historically prompted job losses, pay cuts, and high turnover that burden school districts for years. Because most public school teachers are women, they are affected more. We are examining this issue and others more deeply in a book we are writing called Shafted: The Fate of Women in a Winner-Take-All World. It explores the jobs women do from public schools to Walmart or hedge funds, and demonstrates that the forces that have produced a highly unequal economy have undermined women's well-being. What we found so far is that women in almost every field have lagged behind men in pay, promotions, and leadership opportunities, and in K-12 schools, this issue can appear starkly. You can see there the graph that charts spending on education, federal, state, and local since 1996. The government's role. Historically, the federal government has implemented policies aimed at keeping the economy afloat during recession. During the Great Recession, for example, the 2009 stimulus package included money that cushioned the impact of the recession on the states. Economists largely agree that the policy worked. The spending bolstered state budgets, helping to prevent massive layoffs, and prompted the start of a recovery. Nationwide, education spending averages about 30% of state budgets, with 2/3 of the funds supporting K-12 education. More specifically, the average state expenditures are 21% on elementary and secondary education and 10% on higher education. After Republicans swept Congress in 2010, however, the flow of federal aid related to the recovery was dramatically reduced. There was an immediate impact on the nation's schools. Collectively, the state spent billions less in K-12 education in 2012 than they had in 2011. As of the 2017-2018 school year, 12 states were still spending less on K-12 education than a decade earlier. In their communities, fewer teachers were employed and schools were skimping on school maintenance and supplies. Many public school teachers' wages stagnated and their pension benefits were cut. In these conditions, the most experienced and expensive teachers can be forced out. These are often women. Teaching penalty. During recent decades of squeezed state budgets, the percentage of K-12 teachers who are women has grown, rising to 76% in 2018 from 67% in 1981. Therefore, the refusal to fund state budgets has fallen disproportionately hard on women. Today, teachers earn about 21.4% less than people with the same level of education do in other fields, the highest teaching wage penalty economists have recorded in U.S. history. Female teachers also earn lower salaries than male teachers. And I just really want to underscore this point, you guys. 21.4% less than similarly educated people in other fields. Just do that math on your own income. Shave 21.4% off of your own income. How'd you be doing? Add 21.4% to your income. How much would that help you? That's astounding. And as they point out, there's also a gender gap there as well. So that's teachers overall. Women are even in the lower portion of that statistic, right? We believe the low pay and relatively low status of teaching help explain the increasingly high percentage of women in teaching and the declining percentage of men who join their ranks. We see a solution. It is for counter-cyclical assistance, giving more government assistance when times are tough to the states and making this support automatic. Other financial stabilizers, such as unemployment insurance, and the SNAP nutritional support program already do this by rising during downturns, which also has the effect of bolstering the national economy. That won't happen, however, without greater political recognition that the federal role in state budgets is essential to the health of public schools and the national economy. So, fantastic piece there. I encourage you all to go to our website and find content like that. You can read the rest of that piece if you would like. I think it's very much worth noting that this affects almost every issue that we discuss, which is why MMT and understanding funding mechanisms is so crucial. The federal government can afford to pay for these programs that's in a way that states cannot. And this doesn't just apply to education. It applies to everything, you guys. Healthcare, infrastructure, education, anything you can name that's a public utility or a public program, the federal government can afford it. States are financially constrained. For a state to afford it, they have to tax or they have to take a loan out. So, this is an area where we could use the capacity to spend at the federal level to fill that financial gap, which would not only help teachers, which by continuation would also help students and others involved in education. And then as you do this generation over generation, each generation of students is better off. Each generation of teachers is better off, right? This would be a positive cycle for the actual individuals participating in the education system. It also would be beneficial economically, right? It would stimulate the economy, and it would allow states to allocate those funds to other budget needs. So this is something that I really, really want my audience to look into and try to understand the difference between the funding mechanism that a state or a city or a county has, or a business or an individual, all in one category, compared to the dynamic that the currency issuer, the federal government, finds themselves in. And there are any number of issues where we could make this same point, that if it were funded federally, states could better use the finite amount of money that they have, the finite capacity to spend that they're stuck with, right? So this really hits home for me, you guys. My mom is a teacher. My grandma was a teacher. I have the utmost respect for educators, and I think education needs to be a priority for any healthy society. And to the point that they made at some point in that article about how you actually create this perverse incentive structure, that applied to my family. I saw this happen. My mom got her master's, and at a certain point in her career, she realized that she was handcuffed in terms of where she could work, because the district would rather hire somebody fresh out of college who doesn't have a master's because they'd be way cheaper. So the incentive structure actually works against having experienced teachers in the classroom. It incentivizes districts who are also obviously financially constrained. They're part of city budgets, right? Or largely part of city budgets and state budgets. It incentivizes them to go with the cheaper option, which is bad for teachers. It's bad for students. It's bad for our community as a whole. So we need a more robust education system. We need to fund that system if we want it to be robust. And if you don't prioritize education, I don't know what to say to you. I think you're nuts. Obviously, I don't think everybody should need a college degree, you guys, but I think it should be available to anybody who wants it. I don't think we should stigmatize more blue collar type work. I've had this discussion a number of times. I think people should be able to make not just a comfortable living. I think people should be able to make a socially inclusive wage doing any form of work that there is to be done. I also think people should have access to however much education they would like to pursue. If you're thinking about, like, if your goal is for our species or our society or our community to be successful going forward, you should want as much education as you can possibly get. So very important piece there. I was proud to see Real Progressives covering that. And again, just want to say realprogressives.org. You can find all sorts of articles and podcasts and fantastic educational and media content there. So stand up for teachers, everybody. Seriously, they're a lifeblood of our society, and they are drastically mistreated, especially women. So I hope that we will come to a place in the near future where we are more humane about how we fund this, where the federal government provides more of this funding and allows our education system to grow and improve. So we have a